Friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you want to watch the super hit movie Ben-Hur in full HD, then first of all, give this video a like, and if you are visiting our channel for the first time, then subscribe to this channel. The name of the movie we're going to discuss in today's video is Ben-Hur. So, we will give you information about how and where you will get to watch Ben-Hur film officially. Apart from this, we will give you a detailed look at the pre-production, post-production, budget, box office, collection, and filming of this movie. A detailed review of the movie will also be given in this video, where we will explain the story of this movie in detail. We will also discuss the cast and casting performance of the movie. Apart from this, information about the music department and technical department will also be given. Because of this video is going to be very interesting and entertaining. So you must watch this video till the end. And if you haven't liked this video yet, then like this video now and subscribe to this channel. So, let's start the video. Ben-Hur is a 1959 American religious epic film directed by William Wyler, produced by Zimbalist, and starring Charlton Heston as the title character. A remake of the 1925 silent film with a similar title, it was adapted from Lew Wallace's 1880 novel Ben-Hur, A Tale of the Christ. The screenplay is credited to Karl Tunberg, but includes contributions from Maxwell Anderson, S.N. Berman, Gore Vidal, and Christopher Fry. The cast also features Stephen Boyd, Jack Hawkins, Haya Harareet, Hugh Griffith, Martha Scott, Kathy O'Donnell in her final film, and Sam Jaffe. Ben-Hur had the largest budget, $175 million, as well as the largest sets built of any film produced at the time. Costume designer Elizabeth Haffenden oversaw a staff of 100 wardrobe fabricators to make the costumes, and a workshop employing 200 artists and workmen provided the hundreds of friezes and statues needed in the film. Filming commenced on May 18, 1958, and wrapped on January 7, 1959, with shooting lasting for 12 to 14 hours a day and 6 days a week. Pre-production began in Italy at Cinecittà around October 1957, and post-production took 6 months. Under cinematographer Robert L. Surtees, executives at Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer made the decision to produce the film in a widescreen format. Over 200 camels and 2,500 horses were used in the shooting of the film, with some 10,000 extras. The sea battle was filmed using miniatures in a huge tank on the back lot at the Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer Studios in Culver City, California. The 9-minute chariot race has become one of cinema's most famous action sequences, and the score, composed and conducted by Miklos Rosa, was at the time the longest ever composed for a film, and was highly influential on cinema for over 15 years. Following a $14.7 million marketing effort, Ben-Hur premiered at Loews State Theater in New York City on November 18, 1959. It was the fastest-grossing as well as the highest-grossing film of 1959, becoming the second highest-grossing film in history at the time after Gone with the Wind. It won a record 11 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Director, Wyler, Best Actor in a Leading Role, Heston, Best Actor in a Supporting Role, Griffith, and Best Cinematography, Color, Surtees. It also won Golden Globe Awards for Best Motion Picture, Drama, Best Director, and Best Supporting Actor, Motion Picture for Stephen Boyd. In 1998, the American Film Institute named it the 72nd Best American Film and the second best American epic film in the AFI's 10 Top 10. In 2004, the National Film Preservation Board selected Ben-Hur for preservation by the National Film Registry of the Library of Congress for being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. Plot in AD 26 Jerusalem, Judah Ben-Hur, a wealthy Jewish prince and merchant, lives with his mother Miriam and younger sister Tirzah. The family's steward, Simonides, has a daughter named Esther. Judah grants Simonides' request for Esther to marry a freeman and grants Esther her freedom as a wedding gift. Apart since childhood, Judah and Esther quickly fall in love. Judah's Roman childhood friend, Messala, returns to Jerusalem as commander of the fortress Antonia. He fully embraces Rome's glory and imperial power, while Judah remains devoted to his faith and the Jewish people's freedom. When Messala demands that Judah surrender potential rebels to Roman authorities, Judah refuses and cuts all ties. The procession of Judean governor Valerius Gratus enters the city. As Judah and Tirzah watch from the upper terrace, loose roof tiles fall, spooking the governor's horse and throwing him off. Messala realizes it was accidental, but condemns Judah to the galleys and imprisons Miriam and Tirzah. Messala also arrests Simonides. While he and other prisoners are transported, they stop in Nazareth. Denied water, Judah collapses, but is revived when a carpenter gives him a drink. After 3 years in the galleys, Judah is assigned to Roman consul Quintus Arrius's flagship. Arrius notices Judah's determination and self-discipline and offers to train him as a gladiator or charioteer, which Judah refuses. When Macedonian pirates attack the Roman fleet, Arrius orders that Judah be unchained. The ship's hull is rammed, flooding the galley. Judah frees the other rowers and then rescues Arrius, who was thrown overboard. After being rescued, Arrius learns the battle was won. He later petitions Emperor Tiberius to free Judah and adopts him as his son. In Rome, Judah becomes a champion charioteer. While returning to Judea, Judah meets Balthazar and Arab sheikh Ilderim. Seeing Judah's prowess as a charioteer, the sheikh asks him to drive his 4 horses in a race before the new Judean governor, Pontius Pilate. Judah declines despite knowing that Messala is competing. Balthazar tells Judah about a prophet he seeks who preaches love and forgiveness and urges Judah to cast off his consuming hate and vengeance. Judah returns to Jerusalem to search for his mother and sister. At his abandoned house, he finds Esther, who never married, living with her debilitated father and also Malach, a mute former prisoner. Messala tortured Simonides, who has protected Judah's fortune nonetheless. Presenting himself as Quintus Arrius's son, Judah confronts Messala and demands to know Miriam and Tirzah's fates. Messala orders their release from the dungeons. Both are now lepers and secretly expelled to the Valley of the Lepers. Before leaving the city, the women find and beg Esther to conceal their condition from Judah. Esther tells Judah they are dead to stop him searching. Seeking revenge, Judah agrees to drive Sheikh Ilderim's 4 horses against Messala in the chariot race. The sheikh goads Messala into making an enormous wager on himself before revealing Judah is his driver. During the race, Messala drives a beaked chariot, having cutters on the wheel hubs to disable competitors. He attempts to destroy Judah's chariot but wrecks his own instead. Dragged behind his horses, he is trampled by another chariot while Judah wins the race. Before dying, Messala tells Judah his mother and sister are alive in the Valley of the Lepers. At the leper colony, Judah encounters Esther and Malach, bringing supplies to Miriam and Tirzah. Esther persuades him to conceal himself as his family would wish. She then follows a crowd and Balthazar to hear what is possibly Jesus Christ's Sermon on the Mount. Judah meets with Pontius Pilate, who fears Judah's victory will stoke rebellion against Roman rule. Judah rejects his patrimony and Roman citizenship. Returning to the leper colony, he reveals himself to Miriam and finds that Tirzah is dying. Judah and Esther take them to see Jesus Christ, but the trial of Jesus has begun. While carrying his cross through the streets, Jesus collapses. Judah recognizes him as the man who gave him water earlier and tries to give him water, but a Roman soldier intervenes. As Judah and Balthazar witness Jesus' crucifixion, Miriam and Tirzah are sheltered in a cave with Esther during a violent storm and are miraculously cured. Realizing that forgiveness is better than revenge, Judah returns to his house and finds them healed. Embracing, the 4 rejoice at the miracle. Cast: Charlton Heston as Judah Ben-Hur, Jack Hawkins as Quintus Arrius, Haya Harareet as Esther, Stephen Boyd as Messala, Hugh Griffith as Sheikh Ilderim, Martha Scott as Miriam, Kathy O'Donnell as Tirzah, Sam Jaffe as Simonides, Finlay Curry as Balthazar, Frank Thring as Pontius Pilate, Terence Longden as Drusus, George Relf as Tiberius Caesar, Andre Morel as Sextus, Lawrence Payne as Joseph Production Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer MGM, originally announced a remake of the 1925 silent film Ben-Hur in December 1952, ostensibly as a way to spend its Italian assets. Stuart Granger and Robert Taylor were reported to be in the running for the lead. 9 months later, MGM announced it would make the film in CinemaScope, with shooting beginning in 1954. In November 1953, MGM announced it had assigned producer Sam Zimbalist to the picture and hired screenwriter Karl Tunberg to write it. Sidney Franklin was scheduled to direct, with Marlon Brando intended for the lead. In September 1955, Zimbalist, who continued to claim that Tunberg's script was complete, announced that a $7 million, 6 to 7 month production would begin in April 1956 in either Israel or Egypt, in MGM's new 65mm widescreen process, MGM Camera 65. MGM, however, suspended production in early 1956 following Franklin's resignation. By the late 1950s, the consent decree of 1948 forcing film studios to divest themselves of theater chains and the competitive pressure of television had caused significant financial distress at MGM. In a gamble to save the studio and inspired by the success of Paramount Pictures' 1956 biblical epic The Ten Commandments, studio head Joseph Vogel announced in 1957 that MGM would again move forward on a remake of Ben-Hur. Filming started in May 1958 and wrapped in January 1959, and post-production took 6 months. Although the budget for Ben-Hur was initially $7 million, it was reported to be $10 million by February 1958, reaching $175 million by the time shooting began. Making it the costliest film ever produced up to that time when adjusted for inflation. The budget of Ben-Hur was approximately $164 million in constant dollars. One notable change in the film involved the opening titles. Concerned that a roaring Leo the Lion, the MGM mascot, would create the wrong mood for the sensitive and sacred nativity scene, Wyler received permission to replace the traditional logo with one in which Leo the Lion is quiet. Development. Lew Wallace's 1880 novel, Ben-Hur, A Tale of the Christ, ran to about 550 pages. Zimbalist hired a number of screenwriters to cut the story down and turn the novel into a script. According to Gore Vidal, more than 12 versions of the script had been written by various writers by the spring of 1958. Vidal himself had been asked to write a version of the script in 1957, refused, and been placed on suspension for his decision. According to Vidal, Karl Tunberg was one of the last writers to work on the script. Other sources placed Tunberg's initial involvement much earlier. Tunberg cut out everything in the book after the crucifixion of Jesus, omitted the subplot in which Ben-Hur fakes his death, and raises a Jewish army to overthrow the Romans, and altered the manner in which the leprous women are healed. According to Wyler, Vidal, their biographers, see bibliography below, and the sources that follow them, Zimbalist was unhappy with Tunberg's script, considering it to be pedestrian and unshootable. The writing effort changed direction when director Sidney Franklin fell ill and was removed from the production. Zimbalist offered the project to William Wyler, who had been one of 30 assistant directors on the 1925 film in early 1957. Wyler initially rejected it, considering the quality of the script to be very primitive, elementary, and no better than hackwork. Zimbalist showed Wyler some preliminary storyboards for the chariot race and informed him that MGM would be willing to spend up to $10 million, and, as a result, Wyler began to express an interest in the picture. MGM permitted Wyler to start casting, and in April 1957, mainstream media outlets reported that Wyler was giving screen tests to Italian leading men, such as Cesare Danova. Wyler did not formally agree to direct the film until September 1957, and MGM did not announce his hiring until January 3, 1958. Even though he still lacked a leading man, Wyler took the assignment for many reasons. He was promised a base salary of $350,000, as well as 8% of the gross box office, or 3% of the net profits, whichever was greater, and he wanted to work in Rome again, in Hollywood on the Tiber, where he had filmed Roman Holiday. His base salary was, at the time, the largest ever paid to a director for a single film. Professional competitive reasons also played a role in his decision to direct, and Wyler later admitted that he wished to outdo Cecil B. DeMille and make a thinking man's biblical epic. In later years, William Wyler would joke that it took a Jew to make a good film about Christ. Writing Wyler felt Tunberg's draft was too much of a morality play overlaid with current Western political overtones, and that the dialogue was too modern-sounding. Zimbalist brought in playwright S.N. Berman, who also wrote the script for Quo Vadis, and then playwright Maxwell Anderson to write drafts. Gore Vidal biographer Fred Kaplan states that British poet and playwright Christopher Fry was hired simultaneously with Vidal, although most sources, including Vidal himself, state that Vidal followed Anderson, and that Fry did not come aboard until Vidal was close to leaving the picture. Vidal arrived in Rome in early March 1958 to meet with Wyler. Vidal claimed that Wyler had not read the script, and that when he did so, at Vidal's urging on his flight from the U.S. to Italy, he was upset with the modernist dialogue. Vidal agreed to work on the script for 3 months so that he would come off suspension and fulfill his contract with MGM, although Zimbalist pushed him to stay throughout the entire production. Vidal was researching a book on the 4th century Roman Emperor Julian and knew a great deal about ancient Rome. That book was eventually published in 1964 under the title Julian. Vidal's working style was to finish a scene and review it with Zimbalist. Once Vidal and Zimbalist had come to agreement, the scene would be passed to Wyler. Vidal said he kept the structure of the Tunberg, Schast, Berman, Anderson script, but rewrote nearly all the dialogue. Vidal admitted to William Morris in March 1959 that Fry rewrote as much as a third of the dialogue which Vidal had added to the first half of the script. Vidal made one structural change which was not revised, however. The Tunberg script had Ben-Hur and Messala reuniting and falling out in a single scene. Vidal broke the scene in two so that the men first reunite at the Castle Antonia and then later argue and end their friendship at Ben-Hur's home. Vidal also added small character touches to the script, such as Messala's purchase of a brooch for Tirzah and Ben-Hur's purchase of a horse for Messala. Vidal claimed that he worked on the first half of the script, everything up to the chariot race, and scripted 10 versions of the scene where Ben-Hur confronts Messala and begs for his family's freedom. Vidal's claim about a homoerotic subtext is hotly debated. Vidal first made the claim in an interview in the 1995 documentary film The Celluloid Closet, and asserted that he persuaded Wyler to direct Stephen Boyd to play the role as if he were a spurned homosexual lover. Vidal said that he believed that Messala's vindictiveness could only be motivated by the feeling of rejection that a lover would feel, and claimed to have suggested to Wyler that Stephen Boyd should play the role that way and that Heston be kept in the dark about the Messala character's motivations. Whether Vidal wrote the scene in question or had the acting conversation with Wyler, and whether Wyler shot what Vidal wrote, remain issues of debate. Wyler himself said that he did not remember any conversation about this part of the script or Boyd's acting with Gore Vidal, and that he discarded Vidal's draft in favor of Fry's. Morgan Hudgens, publicity director for the film, however, wrote to Vidal in late May 1958 about the crucial scene and implied there was a homosexual context. The Big Corn Pone, the crew's nickname for Heston, really threw himself into your first meeting scene yesterday. You should have seen those boys embrace. Film critic F.X. Feeney, in a comparison of script drafts, concludes that Vidal made significant and extensive contributions to the script. The final writer on the film was Christopher Fry. Charlton Heston has claimed that Fry was Wyler's first choice as screenwriter, but that Zimbalist forced him to use Vidal. Whether Fry worked on the script before Vidal or not, sources agree that Fry arrived in Rome in early May 1958 and spent 6 days a week on the set writing and rewriting lines of dialogue as well as entire scenes, until the picture was finished. In particular, Fry gave the dialogue a slightly more formal and archaic tone without making it sound stilted and medieval. A highly publicized bitter dispute later broke out over screenplay credits to the film, involving Wyler, Tunberg, Vidal, Fry, and the Screenwriters Guild. In 1996, the Los Angeles Times published a brief letter from Charlton Heston taking issue with Vidal's version, which he wrote irritates the hell out of me. 3 months later, the paper published a 200-word response from Vidal, which included the statement that, with regard to the controversial scene's subtext, he had been delegated to inform Boyd, who was delighted, but that Wyler had warned, "Don't tell Chuck because he'll fall apart." The final script ran to 230 pages. The screenplay differed more from the original novel than did the 1925 silent film version. Some changes made the film's storyline more dramatic. The role of Esther was greatly expanded from that of the novel to provide a strong on-screen love interest throughout the film. Other changes included incorporating an admiration for the Jewish culture and people, historical and modern, as well as representing the more pluralistic society of 1950s America rather than the Christian superiority view of Wallace's novel, though the movie retained a strongly positive religious portrayal of early Christianity. Casting. MGM opened a casting office in Rome in mid-1957 to select the 50,000 people who would act in minor roles and as extras in the film, and a total of 365 actors had speaking parts in the film, although only 45 of them were considered principal performers. In casting, Wyler placed heavy emphasis on characterization rather than looks or acting history. He typically cast the Romans with British actors and the Jews with American actors to help underscore the divide between the two groups. The Romans were the aristocrats in the film, and Wyler believed that American audiences would interpret British accents as patrician. Several actors were offered the role of Judah Ben-Hur before it was accepted by Charlton Heston. Burt Lancaster stated he turned down the role because he found the script boring and belittling to Christianity. Paul Newman turned it down because he said he didn't have the legs to wear a tunic. Marlon Brando, Rock Hudson, and Jeffrey Horn and Leslie Nielsen were also offered the role, as were a number of muscular, handsome Italian actors, many of whom did not speak English. Kirk Douglas was interested in the role, but was turned down in favor of Heston, who was formally cast on January 22, 1958. His salary was $250,000 for 30 weeks, a prorated salary for any time over 30 weeks, and travel expenses for his family. Stephen Boyd was cast as the antagonist, Masala, on April 13, 1958. William Wyler originally wanted Heston for the role, but sought another actor after he moved Heston into the role of Judah Ben-Hur. Because both Boyd and Heston had blue eyes, Wyler had Boyd outfitted with brown contact lenses as a way of contrasting the two men. Marie Ney was originally cast as Miriam, but was fired after 2 days of work because she could not cry on cue. Heston says that he was the one who suggested that Wyler cast Martha Scott as Miriam, and she was hired on July 17, 1958. Kathy O'Donnell was Wyler's sister-in-law, and although her career was in decline, Wyler cast her as Tirzah. More than 30 actresses were considered for the role of Esther. The Israeli actress Haya Harareet, a relative newcomer to film, was cast as Esther on May 16, 1958 after providing a 30-second silent screen test. Wyler had met her at the Cannes Film Festival where she impressed him with her conversational skills and force of personality. Sam Jaffe was cast as Simonides on April 3, 1958, and Finlay Curry was cast as Balthazar on the same day. Wyler had to persuade Jack Hawkins to appear in the film, because Hawkins was unwilling to act in another epic motion picture so soon after The Bridge on the River Kwai. Hugh Griffith, who gained acclaim in the post-World War II era in Ealing Studios comedies, was cast as the colorful Sheikh Ilderim. The role of Jesus, whose face is never seen, was played by an uncredited Claude Heater, an American opera singer performing with the Vienna State Opera in Rome, when he was asked to do a screen test for the film. Myrna Hansen, who was crowned Miss USA in 1953, was considered for the role of a leper. Cinematography, Robert L. Surtees, who had already filmed several of the most successful epics of the 1950s, was hired as cinematographer for the film. Early on in the film's production, Zimbalist and other MGM executives made the decision to film the picture in a widescreen format. Wyler strongly disliked the widescreen format, commenting that nothing is out of the picture and you can't fill it. You either have a lot of empty space or you have two people talking and a flock of others surrounding them who have nothing to do with the scene. Your eye just wanders out of curiosity. The cameras were also quite large, heavy and difficult and time-consuming to move. To overcome these difficulties, Surtees and Wyler collaborated on using the widescreen lenses, film stocks, and projection technologies to create highly detailed images for the film. Wyler was best known for composition in depth, a visual technique in which people, props, and architecture are not merely composed horizontally, but in depth of field as well. He also had a strong preference for long takes, during which his actors could move within this highly detailed space. The movie was filmed in a process known as MGM Camera 65. 1957's Raintree County was the first MGM film to use the process. The MGM Camera 65 used special 65mm Eastman color film stock with a 2.76:1 aspect ratio. 70-cm anamorphic camera lenses developed by the Mitchell Camera Company were manufactured to specifications submitted by MGM. These lenses squeeze the image down 1.25 times to fit on the image area of the film stock. Because the film could be adapted to the requirements of individual theaters, movie houses did not need to install special, expensive 70mm projection equipment. 6 of the 70mm lenses, each worth $100,000, were shipped to Rome for use by the productions. Principal photography pre-production began at Cinecittà Studios around October 1957. The MGM art department produced more than 15,000 sketches and drawings of costumes, sets, props, and other items needed for the film. 8,000 alone for the costumes. Photostatted each item, and cross-referenced and cataloged them for use by the production design team and fabricators. More than 1 million props were ultimately manufactured. Construction of miniatures for the entrance of Quintus Arrius into Rome and for the sea battle were underway by the end of November 1957. MGM location scouts arrived in Rome to identify shooting locations in August 1957. Location shooting in Africa was actively under consideration, and in mid-January 1958, MGM said that filming in North Africa, later revealed to be Libya, would begin on March 1, 1958, and that 200 camels and 2,500 horses had already been procured for the studio's use there. The production was then scheduled to move to Rome on April 1st, where Andrew Martin had been hired as second unit director, and 72 horses were being trained for the chariot race sequence. However, the Libyan government canceled the production's film permit for religious reasons on March 11, 1958, just a week before filming was to have begun. It is unclear whether any second unit filming took place in Israel. A June 8, 1958 report in the New York Times said second unit director Andrew Martin had roamed up and down the countryside filming footage. However, the American Film Institute claims the filming permit was revoked in Israel for religious reasons as well, although when is not clear. And no footage from the planned location shooting near Jerusalem appeared in the film. Principal photography began in Rome on May 18, 1958. The script was still unfinished when cinematography began, so that Wyler had only read the first 10 to 12 pages of it. Shooting lasted for 12 to 14 hours a day, 6 days a week. On Sundays, Wyler would meet with Fry and Zimbalist for story conferences. The pace of the film was so grueling that a doctor was brought onto the set to give a vitamin B complex injection to anyone who requested it. Shots which Wyler and his family later suspected may have contained amphetamines. To speed things up, Wyler often kept principal actors on standby, in full costume and makeup, so that he could shoot pickup scenes if the first unit slowed down. Actresses Martha Scott and Kathy O'Donnell spent almost the entire month of November 1958 in full leprosy makeup and costumes, so that Wyler could shoot leper scenes when other shots did not go well. Wyler was unhappy with Heston's performances, feeling they did not make Judah Ben-Hur a plausible character, and Heston had to reshoot I'm a Jew 16 times. Shooting took 9 months, which included 3 months for the chariot race scene alone. Principal photography ended on January 7, 1959, with filming of the crucifixion scene, which took 4 days to shoot. Production design. Italy was MGM's top choice for hosting the production. However, a number of countries, including France, Mexico, Spain, and the United Kingdom, were also considered Cinecittà Studios, a very large motion picture production facility constructed in 1937 on the outskirts of Rome, was identified early on as the primary shooting location. Zimbalist hired Wyler's long-term production supervisor, Henry Henningsen, to oversee the film, and art directors William A. Horning and Edward Carfagno created the overall look of the film, relying on the more than 5 years of research which had already been completed for the production. A skeleton crew of studio technicians arrived in the summer of 1956 to begin preparing the Cinecittà soundstages and backlot. The Ben-Hur production utilized 300 sets scattered over 148 acres and 9 soundstages. Several sets still standing from Quo Vadis in 1951 were refurbished and used for Ben-Hur. By the end of the production, more than 1,000 pounds, 450,000 kg of plaster, and 40,000 cubic feet, 100 3 of lumber were used. The budget called for more than 100,000 costumes and 1,000 suits of armor to be made, for the hiring of 10,000 extras, and the procurement of hundreds of camels, donkeys, horses, and sheep. Costume designer Elizabeth Haffenden oversaw a staff of 100 wardrobe fabricators who began manufacturing the costumes for the film a year before filming began. Special silk was imported from Thailand, the armor manufactured in West Germany, and the woolens made and embroidered in the United Kingdom and various countries of South America. Many leather goods were hand-tooled in the United Kingdom as well, while Italian shoemakers manufactured the boots and shoes. The lace for costumes came from France, while costume jewelry was purchased in Switzerland. More than 400 pounds, 180 kilos of hair were donated by women in the Piedmont region of Italy to make wigs and beards for the production, and 1,000 feet, 300 mm of track laid down for the camera dollies. A workshop employing 200 artists and workmen provided the hundreds of friezes and statues needed. The mountain village of Arconazzo Romano, 40 miles, 64 kilometers from Rome, served as a stand-in for the town of Nazareth. Beaches near Anzio were also used, and caves just south of the city served as the leper colony. Some additional desert panoramas were shot in Arizona, and some close-up inserts taken at the MGM studios, with the final images photographed on February 3, 1958. The sea battle was one of the first sequences created for the film. Filmed using miniatures in a huge tank on the back lot at the MGM studios in Culver City, California, in November and December 1957. More than 40 miniature ships and two 175-foot, 53-minute-long Roman galleys, each of them seaworthy, were built for the live-action segment. The ships were constructed based on plans found in Italian museums for actual ancient Roman galleys. An artificial lake with equipment capable of generating sea-sized waves was built at the Cinecittà studios to accommodate the galleys. A massive backdrop, 200 feet, 61 meters wide by 50 feet, 15 feet high, was painted and erected to hide the city and hills in the background. To make the scene bloodier, Dunning sought out Italian extras who had missing limbs, then had the makeup crews rig them with fake bone and blood to make it appear as if they had lost a hand or leg during the battle. When Dunning edited his own footage later, he made sure that these men were not on screen for so long that audiences would be upset. The above-decks footage was integrated with the miniature work using process shots and traveling mats. One of the most lavish sets was the Villa of Quintus Arrius, which included 45 working fountains and 8.9 miles, 14.3 kilometers of pipes. Wealthy citizens and nobles of Rome who wanted to portray their ancient selves acted as extras in the villa scenes to recreate the ancient city streets of Jerusalem. A vast set covering 0.5 square mile, 1.3 kilometer pound was built, which included a 75-foot, 23-meter high Jaffa Gate. The sets were so vast and visually exciting that they became a tourist attraction, and various film stars visited during production. The huge sets could be seen from the outskirts of Rome, and MGM estimated that more than 5,000 people were given tours of the sets. Dismantling the sets cost $125,000. Almost all the filmmaking equipment was turned over to the Italian government, which sold and exported it. MGM turned title to the artificial lake over to Cinecittà. MGM retained control over the costumes and the artificial lake background, which went back to the United States. The chariots were also returned to the U.S., where they were used as promotional props. The life-size galleys and pirate ships were dismantled to prevent them from being used by competing studios. Some of the horses were adopted by the men who trained them, while others were sold. Many of the camels, donkeys, and other exotic animals were sold to circuses and zoos in Europe. Editing: a total of 1,100,000 feet, $340,000 demand of footage was shot for the film. According to editor John D. Dunning, the first cut of the film was 4.5 hours long. William Wyler stated that his goal was to bring the running time down to 3.5 hours. The most difficult editing decisions, according to Dunning, came during scenes that involved Jesus Christ, as these contained almost no dialogue, and most of the footage was purely reaction shots by actors. Dunning also believed that in the final cut, the leper scene was too long and needed trimming. Editing was also complicated by the 70mm footage being printed. Because no editing equipment, such as the Moviola, existed, which could handle the 70mm print, the 70mm footage would be reduced to 35mm and then cut. This caused much of the image to be lost. When the film was edited into its final form, it ran 213 minutes and included just 19,000 feet, 5,800 milliliters of film. Musical score. The film score was composed and conducted by Miklos Rozsa, who had scored Quo Vadis and most of MGM's historical films of the 1950s. Rozsa researched Greek and Roman music, incorporating this work into his score for authenticity. Rozsa himself directed the 100-piece MGM Symphony Orchestra during the 12 recording sessions, which stretched over 72 hours. The soundtrack was recorded in 6-channel stereo. More than 3 hours of music were composed for the film, and 2.5 hours of it were finally used, making it at the time the longest score ever composed for a motion picture. It was finally surpassed in 2021 by the near 4-hour-long score of Zack Snyder's Justice League. Rozsa won his 3rd Academy Award for his score. Like most film musical soundtracks, it was issued as an album for the public to enjoy as a distinct piece of music. The score was so lengthy that it had to be released in 1959 on 3 LP records, although a 1 LP version with Carlo Savina conducting the Symphony Orchestra of Rome was also issued. In addition, to provide a more listenable album, Raza arranged his score into a Ben-Hur suite, which was released on Lion Records, an MGM subsidiary that issued low-priced records in 1959. This made the Ben-Hur film musical score the first to be released, not only in its entirety, but also as a separate album. The Ben-Hur score has been considered the best of Raza's career. The musical soundtrack to Ben-Hur remained deeply influential into the mid-1970s, when film music composed by John Williams for films such as Jaws, Star Wars, and Raiders of the Lost Ark became more popular among composers and filmgoers. Raza's score has since seen several notable re-releases, including by the Nuremberg Symphony Orchestra on Capitol Records in 1967, several of the tracks by the United Kingdom's National Philharmonic Orchestra and Chorus on Decca Records in 1977, and a Sony Music reissue as a 2-CD set in 1991. In 2012, Film Score Monthly Water Tower Music issued a limited edition 5-CD set of music from the film. A 2-CD set was released by Tadlow Music in 2017 of the complete motion picture score by the City of Prague Philharmonic Orchestra and Chorus, Animal Welfare. In contrast to the 1925 film, during the making of which at least 100 horses were reported to have died, director William Wyler brought in Yakima Knut to ensure the safety of the animals. No horse was injured while shooting the chariot race sequence. Producer Sam Zimbalist had a heart attack on November 4, 1958, while on the set. He was taken to his villa where he died, aged 57. Chariot race sequence The Chariot Race in Ben-Hur was directed by Andrew Martin and Yakima Knut, filmmakers who often acted as second-unit directors on other people's films. Each man had an assistant director who shot additional footage. Among these was Sergio Leone, who was senior assistant director in the second unit and responsible for retakes. William Wyler shot the pageantry sequence that occurs before the race, scenes of the jubilant crowd, and the victory scenes after the race concludes. The pageantry sequence before the race begins is a shot-by-shot remake of the same sequence from the 1925 silent film version. Knowing that the chariot race would be primarily composed of close-up and medium shots, Wyler added the parade in formation, even though it was not historically accurate, to impress the audience with the grandeur of the arena. Set design. The chariot arena was modeled on a historic circus in Jerusalem. Covering 18 acres, 7.3 acre, it was the largest film set ever built at that time. Constructed at a cost of $1 million, it took 1,000 workmen more than a year to carve the oval out of a rock quarry. The racetrack featured 1,500-foot, 460 long straights and 5-story high grandstands. Over 250 miles, 400 kilometers of metal tubing were used to erect the grandstands. Matte paintings created the illusion of upper stories of the grandstands and the background mountains. More than 40,000 short tons, $36,000 t, of sand were brought in from beaches on the Mediterranean to cover the track. Other elements of the circus were also historically accurate. Imperial Roman race courses featured a raised 10-foot, 3.0 m high spina, the center section, metae, columnar goalposts at each end of the spina, dolphin-shaped lap counters and carceres, the columned building in the rear which housed the cells where horses waited prior to the race. The 4 statues atop the spina were 30 feet, 9.1 m high. A chariot track identical in size was constructed next to the set and used to train the horses and lay out camera shots. Preparation planning for the chariot race took nearly a year to complete. 78 horses were bought and imported from Yugoslavia and Sicily in November 1957, exercised into peak physical condition, and trained by Hollywood animal handler Glenn Randall to pull the quadriga, a Roman Empire chariot drawn by 4 horses abreast. Andalusian horses played Ben-Hur's Arabians, while the others in the chariot race were primarily Lipizzans. A veterinarian, a harness maker, and 20 stable boys were employed to care for the horses and ensure they were outfitted for racing each day. The firm of Danesi Brothers built 18 chariots, 9 of which were used for practice, each weighing 900 pounds, 410 kg. Principal cast members, stand-ins, and stunt people made 100 practice laps of the arena in preparation for shooting. Heston and Boyd both had to learn how to drive a chariot. Heston, an experienced horseman, took daily 3-hour lessons in chariot driving after he arrived in Rome, and picked up the skill quickly. Heston was outfitted with special contact lenses to prevent the grit kicked up during the race from injuring his eyes. For the other charioteers, 6 actors with extensive experience with horses were flown in from Hollywood, including Giuseppe Tosi, who had once been a bodyguard for Victor Emmanuel III of Italy. Filming, the chariot scene took 5 weeks, spread over 3 months, to film at a total cost of $1 million and required more than 200 miles, 320 kilometers, of racing to complete. Martin and Yakima Knut filmed the entire chariot sequence with stunt doubles in long shot, edited the footage together, and showed the footage to Zimbalist, Wyler, and Heston to show them what the race should look like and to indicate where close-up shots with Heston and Boyd should go. 7,000 extras were hired to cheer in the stands. Economic conditions in Italy were poor at the time, and as shooting for the chariot scene wound down, only 1,500 extras were needed on any given day. On June 6, 1958, more than 3,000 people seeking work were turned away. The crowd rioted, throwing stones and assaulting the set's gates until police arrived and dispersed them. Dynamite charges were used to show the chariot wheels and axles splintering from the effects of Masala's barbed wheel attacks. 3 lifelike dummies were placed at key points in the race to give the appearance of men being run over by chariots. The cameras used during the chariot race also presented problems. The 70mm lenses had a minimum focusing distance of 50 feet, 15 mil, and the camera was mounted on a small Italian-made car so the camera crew could keep in front of the chariots. The horses, however, accelerated down the 1,500-foot, 460 come straight, much faster than the car could, and the long focal length left Martin and Knut with too little time to get their shots. The production company purchased a more powerful American car, but the horses were still too fast, and even with a head start, the filmmakers only had a few more seconds of shot time. As filming progressed, vast amounts of footage were shot for this sequence. The ratio of footage shot to footage used was 263.1, one of the highest ratios ever for a film. One of the most notable moments in the race came from a near-fatal accident when stuntman Joe Knut, Yakima Knut's son, was tossed into the air by accident. He incurred a minor chin injury. Martin wanted to keep the shot, but Zimbalist felt the footage was unusable. Martin conceived the idea of showing that Ben-Hur was able to land on and cling to the front of his chariot, then scramble back into the quadriga while the horses kept going. The long shot of Knut's accident was cut together with a close-up of Heston climbing back aboard, resulting in one of the race's most memorable moments. Boyd did all but 2 of his own stunts. For the sequence where Masala is dragged beneath a chariot's horses and trampled, Boyd wore steel armor under his costume and acted out the close-up shot and the shot of him on his back, attempting to climb up into the horse's harness to escape injury. A dummy was used to obtain the trampling shot in this sequence. Several urban legends exist regarding the chariot sequence. One claims that a stuntman died during filming, which Nosher Powell claims in his autobiography, and another states that a red Ferrari can be seen during the chariot race. The book Movie Mistakes claims this is a myth. Heston, in a DVD commentary track for the film, mentions that a third urban legend claims that he wore a wristwatch during the chariot race, but points out that he wore leather bracers up to the elbow. Release a massive $14.7 million marketing effort helped promote Ben-Hur. MGM established a special Ben-Hur research department, which surveyed more than 2,000 high schools in 47 American cities to gauge teenage interest in the film. A high school study guide was also created and distributed. Sindlinger and Company was hired to conduct a nationwide survey to gauge the impact of the marketing campaign. In 1959 and 1960, more than $20 million in candy, children's tricycles in the shape of chariots, gowns, hair barrettes, items of jewelry, men's ties, bottles of perfume, Ben-Hur and Ben-His towels, toy armor, helmets and swords, umbrellas, and hardback and paperback versions of the novel, tied to the film with cover art, were sold. Ben-Hur premiered at Loew's State Theater in New York City on November 18, 1959. Present at the premiere were William Wyler, Charlton Heston, Stephen Boyd, Haya Harareet, Martha Scott, Ramon Novarro, who played Judah Ben-Hur in the 1925 silent film version, Spiros Skouras, president of the 20th Century Fox, Barney Balaban, president of Paramount Pictures, Jack L. Warner, president of Warner Bros., Leonard Goldenson, president of the American Broadcasting Company, Mosshart playwright, Robert Kintner, an ABC television executive, Sidney Kingsley, playwright, and Adolf Zukor, founder of Paramount Pictures. Reception, box office. During its initial release, the film earned $33.6 million in North American theater rentals, the distributor's share of the box office, generating approximately $74.7 million in box office sales. It was number one at the monthly U.S. box office for 6 months. Outside of North America, it earned $32.5 million in rentals, about $72.2 million at the box office, for a worldwide total of $66.1 million in rental earnings, roughly equivalent to $146.9 million in box office receipts. It was the fastest-grossing film as well as the highest-grossing film of 1959, in the process becoming the second highest-grossing film of all time at that time, behind Gone with the Wind. It was the highest-grossing film in Japan at the time, earning $2,702,000. Ben-Hur saved MGM from financial disaster, making a profit of $409,000 on its initial release, and another $10.1 million in profits when re-released in 1969. By 1989, Ben-Hur had earned $90 million in worldwide theatrical rentals. Critical reception. Ben-Hur received overwhelmingly positive reviews upon its release. Bosley Crowther, writing for the New York Times, called Ben-Hur a remarkably intelligent and engrossing human drama. While praising the acting and William Wyler's close-to direction, he also had high praise for the chariot race. There has seldom been anything in movies to compare with this picture's chariot race. It is a stunning complex of mighty setting, thrilling action by horses and men, panoramic observation, and overwhelming use of dramatic sound. Jack Gaver, writing for United Press International, also had praise for the acting, calling it full of genuine warmth and fervor and finely acted intimate scenes. Philip K. Scheuer of the Los Angeles Times called it magnificent, inspiring, awesome, enthralling, and all the other adjectives you have been reading about it. He also called the editing generally expert, although at times abrupt. Ronald Holloway, writing for Variety, called Ben-Hur a majestic achievement, representing a superb blending of the motion picture arts by master craftsmen, and concluded that Gone with the Wind, Metro's own champion, all-time top grosser, will eventually have to take a back seat. The chariot race will probably be preserved in film archives as the finest example of the use of the motion picture camera to record an action sequence. The race, directed by Andrew Martin and Yakima Kunut, represents some 40 minutes of the most hair-raising excitement that film audiences have ever witnessed. Crowther felt the film was too long. Scheuer, while generally praising the film, felt that its biggest fault was overstatement, and that it hammered home at points long after they had been made. He singled out the galley rowing sequence, Jesus' journey to the place of crucifixion, and nearly all the sequences involving the lepers. He also lightly criticized Charlton Heston for being more physically than emotionally compelling. John McCartan of The New Yorker was more critical of Heston, writing that he speaks English as if he'd learned it from records. Film critic Dwight MacDonald also was largely negative. He found the film so uninvolving and lengthy that he felt like a motorist trapped at a railroad crossing, while a long freight train slowly trundles by. British film critic John Pym, writing for Time Out, called the film a 4-hour Sunday school lesson. Many French and American film critics who subscribed to the auteur theory saw the film as confirmation of their belief that William Wyler was merely a commercial craftsman rather than a serious artist. In December 1959, in her review for the London Sunday Times, the veteran British film critic Dilys Powell expressed many serious reservations, but still lavished praise on the film. It is the best chariot race in the world and no mistake. By now, everybody has said so, and actually, my only hope is that admiration may have special force when it is extorted from somebody who dislikes chariot races, shrinks from biblical fiction, and detests films, which include the crucifixion. The parts of this long, opulent film with its color, its bright, sharp images, its stunning spectacle, and its size. I cannot complain. I still find that the whole is alien from me. Nevertheless, if we must have films of this kind, this is the one to have. After all, the spectacular scenes remain. The sea fight, the triumph, a magnificent storm, and, of course, the chariot race. A scene superbly shot, superbly edited, superb in every way. I've never seen anything of its sort to touch it for excitement. The review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes reported that 85% of critics have given the film a positive review, based on 54 reviews collected, with an average rating of 8.20/10. The critics' consensus reads, "Uneven, but in terms of epic scope and grand spectacle, Ben-Hur still ranks among Hollywood's finest examples of pure entertainment." On Metacritic, the film has a weighted average score of 90 out of 100 based on 9 critics, indicating universal acclaim. The Japanese filmmaker Akira Kurosawa cited this movie as one of his 100 favorite films. Accolades: Ben-Hur was nominated for 12 Academy Awards and won an unprecedented 11. As of 2025, only Titanic in 1998 and The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King in 2004 have matched the film's wins. The only category that Ben-Hur did not win was for Best Adapted Screenplay, losing to Room at the top. And most observers attributed this to the controversy over the writing credit. MGM and Panavision shared a special technical Oscar in March 1960 for developing the Camera 65 photographic process. Ben-Hur also won 3 Golden Globe Awards: Best Motion Picture, Drama, Best Director, Best Supporting Actor, Motion Picture for Stephen Boyd, and received a Special Achievement Award, which went to Andrew Martin for directing the chariot race sequence. Heston was nominated for a Golden Globe in the Best Performance by an Actor in a Motion Picture, Drama category, but did not win. The picture also won the BAFTA Award for Best Film, the New York Film Critics Circle Award for Best Film, and the Directors Guild of America Award for Outstanding Directorial Achievement in a Motion Picture for William Wyler's masterful direction. Ben-Hur also appears on several Best of lists generated by the American Film Institute, an independent nonprofit organization created by the National Endowment for the Arts in 1967. The AFI 100 Years series were created by juries consisting of over 1,500 artists, scholars, critics, and historians, with movies selected based on the film's popularity over time, historical significance, and cultural impact. Ben-Hur appeared at number 72 on the 100 movies, minor 49 on the 100 thrills, minus 21 on the film scores, minor 56 on the 100 cheers, and minus 2 on the AFI's 10 top 10 epic film lists. In 2004, the National Film Preservation Board selected Ben-Hur for preservation by the National Film Registry for being a culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant motion picture. It was listed as number 491 on Empire's 500 greatest films of all time. The film was included by the Vatican in a list of important films compiled in 1995 under the category of religion broadcast. The film's first telecast took place on Sunday, February 14, 1971. In what was a television first for a Hollywood film, it was broadcast over 5 hours, including commercials, during a single evening by CBS, preempting all of that network's regular programming for that one evening. It was watched by 85.82 million people for a 37.1 average rating. It was one of the highest-rated movies ever screened on television at the time, behind the broadcast premieres of The Birds and Bridge on the River Kwai, Home Media. Ben-Hur has been released on home video on several occasions. A 2-sided single-disc widescreen release occurred in the United States on March 13, 2001. This release included several featurettes, including a commentary by Charlton Heston, a making-of documentary made for a Laserdisc release in 1993, screen tests, and a photo gallery. This edition was released soon thereafter as a 2-disc set in other countries. The film saw another DVD release on September 13, 2005. This 4-disc edition included remastered images and audio, an additional commentary, 2 additional featurettes, and a complete version of the 1925 silent version of Ben-Hur. The film was also separated into 2 parts, with the first and second discs featuring the first and second halves, respectively. A boxed deluxe edition, issued in the U.S. in 2002, included postcard-size reprints of lobby cards, postcard-size black and white stills with machine-reproduced autographs of cast members, a matte-framed color image from the film with a 35mm film frame mounted below it, and a 27 by 40-inch 69 by 100 cm reproduction film poster. In 2011, Warner Home Video released a 50th anniversary edition on Blu-ray disc and DVD, making it the first home release where the film is present on its original aspect ratio. For this release, the film was completely restored frame by frame from an 8K scan of the original 65mm negative. The restoration cost $1 million and was one of the highest resolution restorations ever made by Warner Bros. A new musical soundtrack-only option and 6 new featurettes, one of which was an hour long, were also included. With more than a little hesitation, I recently attended the latest version of Ben-Hur, directed by Timur Bekmambetov. Its 1959 predecessor, directed by William Wyler, was not precisely a bona fide masterpiece, but I've always had a soft spot for it. As a kid, I grew up believing that the religious-themed mega-productions from the 1950s represented Hollywood at its most spectacular. Their epic lengths and musical overtures, intermissions, only added to this idea. I also used to be convinced that their content was surely 100% faithful to history. Wyler's version of Ben-Hur was, and still is, head and shoulders above all other entries in this category. It didn't suffer from Samson and Delilah's 1949 cheesiness, think of the phony lion fight and falling temple, nor was it quite as overblown as Charlton Heston's own The Ten Commandments, 1956. Whatever its idiosyncrasies, it truly was a one-of-a-kind experience that showed the old studio system at its peak going all for it. At its core, the fictional Lew Wallace story of Judah Ben-Hur is basically a revenge movie in the gladiator tradition. But by setting the protagonist's tragic betrayal in the hands of childhood friend Masala during the events surrounding Christ's crucifixion, his suffering and redemption gained special weight and meaning. From a cinematic point of view, the 1959 Ben-Hur holds up rather well to this day, and there is no doubt that its chariot race is still one of the greatest action scenes of all time. Just place it alongside with the rather brief one in Quo Vadis, 1951. That is shot with background photography, and the difference is mind-blowing. Time hasn't been quite as kind with Ben-Hur's other renowned set piece, the Maritime Battle, as it is now painfully obvious how it was shot in a tank at the studio lot. The film as a whole is very much a product of its time, with perfectly shaven and bathed characters, whose clothes seem like they just came out from the manufacturing line, as were their shiny new shields and helmets. The acting, as was often the case in those days, is the very definition of hammy, and is best remembered by the endless, preachy dialogue between Charlton Heston and Haya Harareet, while both stood cheek to cheek, their eyes pointing to the sky. The 2016 version of Ben-Hur has its own share of peculiarities. Most of the central characters look much too cool and contemporary. The best example of this comes in the sequence where the new Judah, Jack Huston, and his wife Esther, Nazanin Boniati, are shown riding a horse while wearing rather fashionable pants. Not only do I have my doubts that such a garment had already been invented at that point in history, but most importantly, a woman wearing such during those days would have surely caused quite the scandal. One thing that made Mel Gibson's The Passion of the Christ, 2004, so believable was how beat and dirty its protagonist looked, as was surely the case. But even though this new Ben-Hur is set at the same time period, it is more concerned with making sure its leads are attractive enough so today's audiences will want to identify with them. Charlton Heston may have won the Academy Award for Best Actor for the 1959 version of Ben-Hur, but his performances were always a bit on the theatrical side. I always saw him more as a great screen presence than a great actor, but his aura is definitely missed in this new entry anyway. When Morgan Freeman makes his appearance halfway through the new version, one can't help but breathe a sign of relief at the sight of someone of his stature and familiarity, even if he brings along yet another of his obligatory narrations. Another problem with the new Ben-Hur is that it only does a marginally better job of casting the part of Jesus Christ than the dismal Risen, 2016, even though the role is given much more importance than in the Wyler version. One of the biggest achievements of The Passion of the Christ was making you feel like you were watching the real person, but this is hardly the case with the Rodrigo Santoro portrayal. As a result, his dialogue comes off rather heavy-handed and preachy. Perhaps it would have been a better idea to show his presence only from behind, as they once did in the 1959 version. The main difference between both versions of Ben-Hur is that while the 1959 film took its time with everything, the latest one always tries to get to the point as quickly as possible. My guess is that this was done with today's more impatient audiences in mind. The dialogue in the 2016 version is also more concise, especially that between Huston and Boniati, as, thankfully, Judah is restricted to uttering his favorite line, "Where are my mother and my sister?" no more than a couple of times. Additionally, several characters are used in different subplots as to keep the number of players to a minimum, and others from the older version are eliminated and not terribly missed. Think of the Roman general who adopts Charlton Heston after the latter saves his life at sea. The recent version's relative brevity is mostly for the best, but by having the new Judah made a slave in the galleys, and after just a couple of minutes marking the passage of 5 years by placing him in the middle of the defining battle, there's just not enough time to linger on the cruelty of his destiny. As a result, by the film's end, his redemption doesn't have the same poignancy as it did in the Wyler version. Turning a new and unexpected character into the detonator for Judah's arrest, as opposed to the tragic, aleatory event from the older film, doesn't help matters either. It leaves former friend turned foe Messala without much choice but to betray our protagonist, lessening the former's guilt and the overall impact of the outcome. What's best about this new Ben-Hur are surely the amazing action scenes filmed by the Bourne series cinematographer Oliver Wood. The naval battle is obviously CGI-laden, but the filmmakers make sure to use the newest technology available to explore every possibility to the action the old version could have never even considered. The same goes for the chariot race, in which the special effects seamlessly blend the actors and the extras with these incredibly violent events, such as the sight of one collapsing horse after another, or even that a steed climbing all the way into the stands alongside the terrified crowds. Both set pieces are also edited much more tightly than the originals. Think, for example, of how the 1959 Chariots race included a long introductory sequence with musical fanfare for every participant, while the latter takes its own visual achievements for granted and skips it altogether. Even though this new chariot race wasn't done entirely in reality like the last one, it is still pretty jaw-dropping, the only caveat being that it comes at the heels of several other state-of-the-art special effects movies. The 2016 version of Ben-Hur doesn't feel as unique or special as the old one surely did when it first came out. Much has been said about how the new version of Ben-Hur gives special emphasis to Judah's reconciliation with Messala. Even though Charlton Heston was never given the opportunity to forgive his Stephen Boyd's counterpart directly in the prior entry, the feeling was clearly implied, but despite the filmmaker's best intentions by having Huston's Judah doing it on screen this time around, the new film's conclusion feels much too forced. Still, it's hard to understand why the 2016 version of Ben-Hur flopped at the box office so badly. The Lew Wallace story may lack the twists, turns, and the edge that are so common in today's movies, but it works just as well today as it did 50-some years ago. There are plenty of things that could have been better about the new Ben-Hur, and the following may not be the best possible endorsement, but I was surprised that its distance to greatness was a heck of a lot shorter. The entertainment experience of a lifetime, trumpeted the poster for Ben-Hur upon its release in 1959. It was an absurdly pompous claim that the universe nonetheless did its level best to reward, as if to justify the filmmaker's sheer commitment to scale. At the now quaint-sounding figure of 15 millimeters, William Wyler's epic was at the time the most expensive film with the largest sets in Hollywood history, with a marketing budget nearly as high as the production one. Sure enough, audiences and awards voters took them at their word. Ben-Hur swiftly took its place behind only Gone with the Wind in the all-time box office charts and roared through the Oscars with 11 wins, a record that stood alone until Titanic and The Lord of the Rings: Return of the King equaled it decades later. Yet there was an oddly, inadvertently backhanded undertone to that grandstanding. Ben-Hur may have been the entertainment experience of one lifetime, yes, but has it endured through subsequent ones? The biblical spectacular celebrates its 60th anniversary this month, yet it doesn't feel as broadly celebrated today as other films marking the same milestone. Billy Wilder's Some Like It Hot, for example, or Alfred Hitchcock's North by Northwest, or Francois Truffaut's The 400 Blows. Those, of course, were better films then and better films now, even if they raked in a fraction of Ben-Hur's supersized total. They just weren't events, the kind of films promoted as experiences above all, something that almost any blockbuster only gets to be once for a year at most in its long, brawny life. Shorn of event status, is Ben-Hur a classic, or is it simply a title people know, a signifier of a particular brand of epic cinema? One has to wonder how often the saga of Judah Ben-Hur, from Jewish prince to condemned slave to anguished witness to Christ's crucifixion, is actually watched today in all its sprawling, lumbering glory. Everyone knows the chariot race sequence, of course, though I'd guess rather fewer people have actually seen it in context. It only fills 9 minutes of the film's 212, after all. They're 9 thoroughly transfixing minutes, to be fair. A testament to the increasingly rare, tactile thrill of spectacular Hollywood action, realized entirely through physical means. But what else do you remember from the film's remaining 3+ hours? The arduous rowing in the galleys, most likely. Charlton Heston's neck veins glistening and threatening to pop at scattered points throughout the narrative, maybe. But if you remember Ben-Hur fondly, chances are you're selectively forgetting some drab, extended passages. That interminable visit to the leper colony, or any of the wooden, chemistry-free romantic dithering between Heston's Judah and Haya Harareet's Esther, or the excruciating yet Oscar-winning brown-face hammery of Hugh Griffith's Sheik Ilderim. Burt Lancaster famously turned down the title role because he deemed the script a bore. He wasn't entirely wrong. An avowed atheist, Lancaster also dismissed the project as blatant promotion for Christianity, a charge the filmmakers had preemptively made some effort to address. It was based, of course, on American writer Lew Wallace's 1880 adventure novel Ben-Hur, A Tale of the Christ, which had already been filmed as a silent epic under the same title in 1925. Then, as now, remakes were big business in Hollywood. It was an overtly Christian text, culminating in Ben-Hur's miracle-fueled conversion from Judaism to Christianity. Religious fervor was, of course, no obstacle to box office success in the 1950s, Ben-Hur having been made in the immediate wake of Cecil B. DeMille's blockbuster, The Ten Commandments. Yet shedding that fusty Tale of the Christ subtitle was a telling sign that Wyler's version was aiming for more universal reach. The conversion remains, yet the screenwriter's strenuous efforts to treat Judaism with measured respect were palpable. While Wyler's decision to keep Christ an entirely peripheral, faceless figure in the film may have been in line with Wallace's own wishes, but it also kept the film from feeling too, well, Christian. Yet by the time Ben-Hur was filmed yet again, only 3 years ago, it was no longer approached as universally populist entertainment, but expressly tailored for the faith-based audience. A globally marginal market that nonetheless proves continually profitable within America's borders. Produced by Mark Burnett and former Touched by an Angel star Roma Downey, the husband and wife team behind Christian-oriented production company Lightworkers Media. Timur Bekmambetov's chintzy, loosely adapted new version gave Christ not just a face, a handsome one courtesy of actor Rodrigo Santoro, but a vastly expanded role. Expectations of the faithful will be honored by this one, said Rob Moore, vice chair of Paramount, the film's distributing studio. The tacit admonishment of Wyler's version for being comparatively secular was all too audible. Whatever its beefed-up Christian credentials, the new Ben-Hur certainly made the older one look a relative classic. Even the chariot race was botched in a swamp of CGI, while its turgid messaging made it feel rather more ponderous. It was 90 minutes shorter. To no one's surprise, it was savaged by critics and tanked at the box office, taking in less than 100 million worldwide and failing even to engage America's sturdy Christian cinema-goers. Since the seemingly anomalous phenomenon of Mel Gibson's The Passion of the Christ 15 years ago, which fed off violence and controversy as much as devotion, no biblical epic has captured the popular imagination on a blockbuster scale. In a little over half a century, the story of Judah Ben-Hur went from world-beating Hollywood goldmine, the superhero spectacle of its age, to a cautionary tale within the faith-based niche. Perhaps a better remake would have shored up the legacy of Wyler's film. As it is, a YouTube clip of the chariot scene, currently with over 3 million views, may be its most enduring edit. This helped to convey the vastness of the Roman Empire and the scale of the film's action, creating a sense of awe and wonder that was crucial to immersing the audience in the world of ancient Rome. The camera work during the chariot race sequence is perhaps the most famous example of Ben-Hur's technical prowess. The filmmakers employed a variety of angles, including low shots that positioned the camera at ground level, allowing the audience to feel the intensity and chaos of the race as if they were right in the thick of it. The editing of the sequence was another major technical achievement. The chariot race is a rapid-fire sequence with quick cuts between the horses, the drivers, and the spectators. The pace of the editing mirrors the frantic speed of the race, creating a palpable sense of tension and excitement. It is a testament to the skill of the filmmakers that despite the complex choreography and the many moving parts, the sequence feels fluid and exhilarating rather than chaotic. Another striking feature of Ben-Hur is its use of color and light. Cinematographer Robert Surtees employed a vivid color palette to bring the ancient world to life using warm, rich tones to evoke the heat and dust of the desert, as well as the opulence and grandeur of the Roman Empire. The visual contrast between the harsh, dusty exterior scenes and the more intimate, emotionally charged interior moments serve to underscore the contrast between Judah's outward struggles and his internal journey. In scenes where he wrestles with his feelings of vengeance, the lighting is often dim and shadowed, reflecting his inner turmoil, while the moments of grace and redemption are bathed in softer, more radiant light, suggesting a sense of spiritual awakening. Beyond the technical aspects of the film's visuals, the film's sound, design and score also played a crucial role in shaping the audience's emotional experience. Composed by Michiko Rosa, the score for Ben-Hur is one of the most iconic in film history, perfectly complementing the sweeping action and poignant moments of the story. Rosa's music is powerful and dramatic, with soaring strings and bold brass that heighten the emotional stakes of each scene. The score builds to a crescendo during key moments, such as the chariot race and the crucifixion scene, underscoring the gravity of the narrative and elevating the film's impact. The music becomes almost a character in its own right, driving the emotional resonance of the film, and its swelling themes of hope, redemption, and faith help to solidify Ben-Hur's place as one of the most emotionally affecting films ever made. In addition to its technical achievements, Ben-Hur was also groundbreaking in terms of its use of extras and the scale of its crowd scenes. The film employed thousands of extras to populate its vast sets, especially during the scenes of the chariot race and the grand processions of Roman soldiers. These scenes required meticulous coordination and organization, as each extra had to be placed with precision to ensure the proper scale and grandeur of the scene. The sheer number of extras, combined with the complexity of the choreography, was a logistical challenge, and the filmmakers had to rely on strict discipline and timing to make sure that everything ran smoothly. One of the more interesting anecdotes from the production involves the use of animals on set. In addition to the horses used in the chariot race, the filmmakers also employed camels, elephants, and other animals to populate the various scenes. In one particularly memorable incident, a camel used in the film became notoriously difficult to control, resulting in multiple takes before the animal would cooperate. On another occasion, a herd of elephants used for a procession scene caused an unexpected delay when one of the animals became spooked and wandered off the set, causing chaos among the extras and crew. These humorous and unexpected moments were part of the everyday challenges of working on such a massive production, but they also highlighted the unpredictability of working with live animals in such a complex setting. Throughout the production of Ben-Hur, the technical achievements were matched only by the emotional and creative vision that drove the film forward. Every shot, every scene, and every sequence was designed with a singular goal in mind: to create a cinematic experience unlike any other. The incredible scale of the film, combined with the dedication of the cast and crew, resulted in a final product that continues to captivate audiences to this day. From the groundbreaking use of practical effects to the stunning set designs and impeccable cinematography, Ben-Hur remains a testament to the power of innovation in filmmaking. Each technical feat, from the chariot race to the grand processions, contributed to the film's lasting impact, making Ben-Hur not just a film of its time, but a lasting achievement in the art of cinema. Ben-Hur is more than just an epic historical drama. It is a profound exploration of themes that continue to resonate with audiences today. From the destructive power of vengeance to the life-altering nature of redemption, beneath its grand spectacle lies a narrative that wrestles with fundamental human struggles, betrayal, suffering, and the possibility of transformation. As the story unfolds, it delves into deeply philosophical questions, blending personal anguish with a broader, almost universal moral journey. This is not just the story of one man's quest for revenge, but of how that revenge, if pursued without redemption, can ultimately consume a person's soul. At its core, Ben-Hur is about the journey from darkness to light, both in the physical and spiritual senses, and the possibility of grace amidst human suffering. The theme of vengeance is perhaps the most immediately compelling thread that runs throughout Ben-Hur Judah. Ben-Hur's journey begins with betrayal. His childhood friend Masala accuses him of treason, sentencing him to years of brutal labor in the Roman GS. This betrayal ignites a fiery thirst for revenge in Judah's heart, and it sets him on a path that consumes him with an obsessive determination to destroy Masala. The film expertly explores how this desire for retribution shapes Judah's identity, driving his every action, motivating him to go to extraordinary lengths to regain his freedom and to make his former friend pay for his crimes. At first, his vengeance seems righteous, even justified. After all, Masala's actions were not just cruel but deeply unjust. However, as the film progresses, it becomes increasingly clear that revenge is a hollow pursuit. It brings Judah no peace, only further suffering. The deeper Judah's quest for vengeance goes, the more he becomes ensnared by it. This internal struggle forms the emotional heart of the film, as Judah must decide whether his desire for revenge will define him or if he will find another path. The destructive nature of vengeance is also mirrored in the character of Messa, whose obsession with defeating Judah leads to his own tragic downfall. Messala is not a purely villainous character. He is a man torn between loyalty to his Roman identity and his childhood bond with Judah. As the movie progresses, we see how Messal's own thirst for power and dominance overcomes his more noble traits, turning him into the very thing he once sought to oppose. In his final moments after the chariot race, Messa's plea for mercy from Judah underscores the ultimate futility of his pursuit. In a way, Messala's decline is a reflection of the larger moral argument at the heart of Ben-Hur. The pursuit of vengeance destroys not only the victim, but the perpetrator as well. However, Ben-Hur doesn't just critique the idea of vengeance, it also explores the possibility of redemption. As the narrative unfolds, Judah's interaction with the figure of Jesus Christ provides him with the opportunity to reevaluate his approach to life. Unlike Judah's quest for vengeance, Jesus represents forgiveness, compassion, and grace. Throughout the film, Jesus' presence is subtle yet undeniable, offering moments of quiet strength and moral clarity that challenge Judah's hardened view of the world. The key moment that crystallizes this theme occurs when Judah, suffering in the GS, is given water by Jesus. This simple act of kindness changes Judah's perspective. He begins to see the possibility of something beyond his rage and suffering. The transformation of Judah from a man consumed by revenge to one seeking peace is tied directly to the influence of Jesus' teachings, which are rooted in love and forgiveness. By the end of the film, it is clear that redemption is not only available to Judah, but is the only path that can bring him peace. His choice to forgive Messala in the film's emotional climax symbolizes this transformation, revealing that true freedom lies not in the destruction of one's enemies, but in the ability to release anger and embrace compassion. The symbolism in Ben-Hur further enriches its exploration of these themes, using visual and narrative elements to deepen the emotional and moral impact of the story. One of the most potent symbols in the film is the chariot race, a spectacle that goes beyond its thrilling action to embody a struggle of life and death, not just between Judah and Messala, but between competing worldviews. The chariot race represents the final confrontation between vengeance and mercy. As the race unfolds, it's clear that Judah's victory is not merely a physical one. It is a moral and spiritual triumph. His ability to win the race while showing mercy to Messala in the end marks his spiritual awakening. The chariot itself, with its wild and chaotic speed, becomes a metaphor for the destructive nature of Judah's initial path. Fast, furious, and without control, the decision to slow down to show mercy is a deliberate act of breaking from the furious cycle of violence, signifying Judah's inner reconciliation. Another significant symbol is the cross. Jesus' crucifixion occurs near the end of the film, but its influence is felt throughout Judah's journey. The cross is not only a religious symbol of suffering and sacrifice, but also a symbol of transformation. It is through the lens of Jesus' own suffering that Judah begins to understand his own pain, not as a source of hatred, but as something that can lead to a greater understanding of love and forgiveness. The shadow of the cross falls upon Judah in the film's final moment, symbolizing his spiritual rebirth. This imagery underscores the overarching narrative of Ben-Hur, the path from suffering to salvation, from darkness to light. It is a powerful reminder that redemption often requires embracing the very thing we fear and hate the most. At its core, Ben-Hur is also a reflection on the complexities of power and the moral choices that define individuals within systems of oppression. The film's backdrop is the vast Roman Empire, a civilization built on the subjugation of millions, and yet through Judah's eyes, we see the human side of this empire, people caught in a system of cruelty, injustice, and domination. The conflict between Judah and Messala is not just a personal one, but one that speaks to the larger structures of power. At play, Messala's rise to power within the Roman Empire illustrates how an individual can become corrupted by the very system that elevates them, while Judah's fall demonstrates how a person can be crushed under the weight of this power. The contrast between the two friends, one who thrives in a brutal imperialistic system and one who is broken by it, serves as a critique of the social and political structures that sustain such empires. The film's social commentary extends beyond its portrayal of Roman oppression to touch on the class divide that exists within Judah's own society before his fall. Judah is a wealthy, privileged man, a noble of Jerusalem who enjoys a life of comfort and luxury. His tragic journey, which takes him from the heights of power to the depths of suffering, is a reflection of the fragile nature of privilege. Through Judah's eyes, the audience sees how easily power can be lost, how quickly fortunes can change, and how the powerless are often at the mercy of forces they cannot control. This shift from a life of privilege to one of slavery, from one of entitlement to one of suffering, underscores the capriciousness of fate and the stark realities of social inequality. As Judah struggles to regain his status and avenge his wrongs, he also comes to realize that his wealth and status, while they once seemed so important, cannot bring him the peace or fulfillment he so desperately seeks. The film's depiction of Jesus also offers a subtle yet powerful commentary on the role of faith in a world full of suffering. Jesus's presence in Ben-Hur is not merely a religious or theological one, but also a commentary on the transformative power of spirituality. While Judah is physically imprisoned in the galleys and emotionally shackled by his need for vengeance, it is through his spiritual awakening that he is able to find freedom. The film suggests that, regardless of one's social standing or personal tragedy, faith has the potential to offer redemption and release from the cycles of pain and violence that define much of the world. In a world of cruelty where Judah is subjected to the worst of human oppression, Jesus represents an alternative way of living, one that values mercy over vengeance, peace over power, and love over hatred. In the end, Ben-Hur is a timeless reflection on the power of mercy, forgiveness, and redemption. Through Judah's journey, the film explores how deeply embedded ideas like vengeance and power can shape a person's life, and how only through grace and spiritual awakening can true freedom be achieved. Its thematic richness, combined with its symbolic depth, makes it much more than just a story of personal revenge. It is an exploration of the very essence of human experience and the transformative power of grace in the face of suffering. These themes continue to resonate not just within the context of ancient Rome, but in the world today, where struggles for justice, peace, and personal transformation remain as pressing as ever. From the opening frame of Ben-Hur, the audience is immediately swept into a world that is not only larger than life in scale, but also meticulously crafted in terms of visual and auditory detail. Every scene feels meticulously designed, a testament to the vision of director William Wyler and his team. One of the most striking aspects of Ben-Hur is its intricate and evocative visual language, which carries not only the weight of historical authenticity, but also the emotional depth of the characters' journeys. The film, at its core, relies on more than just its epic set pieces and action sequences. It thrives on the nuances of how those moments are framed, lit, and edited. Wyler and his cinematographer, Robert Surtees, combined their talents to create a visual narrative that speaks to the spiritual, emotional, and physical realms of the story. The film's visual style plays a critical role in shaping the audience's experience, not just in terms of spectacle, but also in guiding them through the emotional shifts of the story. At its most basic level, Ben-Hur is about transformation, and the camera's movements and the lighting serve as subtle indicators of this evolution. Early on, when Judah Ben-Hur is living in relative luxury before his world is shattered by betrayal, the lighting is warm and soft, bathing the characters in a golden glow that reflects the comfort and privilege they enjoy. The camera movements during these sequences are steady, lingering, and graceful, reflecting the balance and harmony in Judah's life. The soft focus and warm tones of these scenes invite the audience to connect emotionally with the protagonist's world. Before it is violently torn apart, as the story progresses, the tone of the film shifts dramatically, both in terms of story and visually. The lighting becomes harsher, the color palette cooler, and the camera work more aggressive as Judah is thrust into a world of suffering, vengeance, and struggle. The contrast between the opulence of Judah's early life and the brutal reality of his later years is reflected in the starkness of the visual style. The barren, sun-shed landscapes of the desert, for example, serve as a metaphor for the emptiness that consumes Judah as he moves forward in his quest for revenge. The change in color schemes, the darker shadows, the colder blues and grays seems to mirror his internal transformation as he moves from a world of privilege to one of enslavement and suffering. The use of wide shots is particularly significant throughout the film, helping to establish the epic scale of the Roman Empire as well as to communicate the isolation of Judah's journey. These shots emphasize the contrast between the individual and the vastness of the world around him, underscoring the sense of powerlessness and the struggle of one man against an overwhelmingly large and oppressive system. The wide shots also serve as a backdrop for the many crowd scenes that populate Ben-Hur, from the Gladiatoriale games to the chariot race, the sheer size of the Roman world is conveyed not only through the grandeur of the sets, but also through these sweeping vistas that dwarf the characters. These shots further elevate the stakes of the narrative, amplifying the feeling that Judah's personal journey is not just a battle for revenge, but a struggle against a larger, more powerful force that controls the fate of millions. Camera angles, too, play a pivotal role in emphasizing key moments in the narrative. When Judah first sees Mesa again after years of separation, the camera angle is low, making Masala appear taller and more powerful in contrast to Judah's apparent diminishment. This visual trickery heightens the power dynamics between the two characters as Judah is chained and suffering in the Roman GS. The camera often positions him at the lowest point of the frame, emphasizing his subjugation and hopelessness. By contrast, in moments of personal triumph, such as the chariot race, the camera angles shift and the characters are presented in more heroic, elevated positions, signaling Judah's reclamation of power and his moral and physical transformation. Editing, as with all great epics, plays an instrumental role in ensuring the pacing matches the emotional cadence of the story. The editing choices during the chariot race are some of the most memorable in film history. The rapid cuts between the characters, the horses, and the frantic action on screen heighten the tension, making the audience feel as if they are part of the race itself. This fast-paced editing, especially in the most adrenaline-pumping moments, mirrors the chaos and violence that engulf the characters, underscoring the stakes of this climactic event. Each cut is deliberate, enhancing the sense of urgency and danger, while also reflecting the internal chaos Judah feels as he fights for his survival and seeks revenge. But the editing is not only used for action. Quieter, more introspective moments, the editing slows down with longer takes that allow the emotional weight of a scene to settle. These moments invite the audience to reflect with the characters and feel their struggles and triumphs on a deeper level. One of the film's standout features is its sound design and music, which, like its visuals, heighten the emotional impact of the story. Miklos Roz's score is often hailed as one of the most iconic in film history, and for good reason. It doesn't merely accompany the scenes. It amplifies them, giving the visual action a deeper emotional resonance. The grandeur of the Roman Empire is underscored by sweeping orchestral movements, while the more intimate moments between Judah and his fellow characters are given space through softer, more delicate musical themes. The score is at its most powerful during the chariot race, where the frantic driving rhythms of the music sync perfectly with the action on screen, heightening the adrenaline and making the audience feel the race's urgency in their own veins. Yet Ben-Hur's sound design goes beyond the music itself. The film's use of sound as a storytelling device is integral to its emotional and thematic exploration. The sounds of the Roman galleys, the creaking of wooden ships, the roar of the waves, the grunt of the slaves become a suffocating backdrop to Judah's suffering, amplifying the feeling of captivity. Each of these sounds paints a vivid auditory picture that allows the audience to experience Judah's misery without relying on overt exposition. Similarly, the sound of the chariot, wheels pounding on the ground during the race, adds an almost tactile dimension to the action. The rhythmic sound mirrors the heartbeat of the race itself, the pulse of a competition that will change Judah's life and worldview. The music and sound are inseparable from the visuals, creating a unified sensory experience that makes Ben-Hur more than just a visual spectacle. One of the most unique stylistic choices in Ben-Hur is the way in which Wyler uses visual cues to underscore the spiritual journey of the protagonist. While Ben-Hur is an epic tale set in the ancient world, its true focus is on personal transformation and redemption, and the visual language used throughout the film speaks to that journey. The subtle placement of Jesus in the background of several key scenes is an example of how Wyler uses his camera to evoke a sense of spiritual presence even when the character of Jesus is not actively part of the scene. The way in which Jesus appears, often just at the periphery of the frame, reminds the audience that his influence is always present, even if it's not overtly acknowledged. These moments build up to the climactic confrontation between Judah and Masala, where the camera focuses on Judah's face as he makes the moral decision to forgive rather than exact his revenge. The close-up on Judah's expression in this moment is the culmination of the film's visual storytelling, revealing the internal battle that has raged within him throughout the entire narrative. Through this subtle yet powerful use of visuals, Wyler shows that Judah's ultimate transformation is not just physical, but deeply spiritual. At times, Wyler's direction and the film's visuals seem to be in conversation with the larger themes of fate and free will. The camera lingers on significant, almost symbolic Moments such as when Judas sees the figure of Jesus for the first time, allowing the audience to absorb the weight of those encounters, to feel their sacredness. These moments don't just tell us where Judah is in his journey. They also remind the audience of the larger forces at play in the story. The grandeur of the chariot race and the expansive shots of the Roman Empire speak to the power structures that shape the world, while the quiet, intimate moments with Jesus reflect the still, subtle forces of love, compassion, and mercy that are just as powerful but often more difficult to recognize throughout Ben-Hur's direction and Surtees' cinematography. Elevate the storytelling to a level rarely seen in film. The camera work, the lighting, the editing, all of it is in service of telling a story that is as much about personal transformation as it is about sweeping historical spectacle. The visual choices made throughout the film are deliberate and filled with meaning, from the vast epic shots of the Roman Empire to the quiet moments of personal reflection. Every frame speaks to the emotional, moral, and spiritual arcs of the characters. Through these cinematic techniques, Ben-Hur becomes more than just a film about revenge. It becomes a profound meditation on forgiveness, grace, and redemption, and a testament to the power of visual storytelling to convey the deepest of human experiences. The power of Ben-Hur lies not only in its grandiose spectacle and sweeping narrative, but also in the profound connection between its cast members who brought their characters to life with such intensity and commitment. Behind the scenes, the chemistry between the actors was palpable, and their collaboration brought a sense of unity to the film, making its themes of betrayal, revenge, and redemption resonate. On a deeply human level, the film's success was not just a result of the elaborate sets or the carefully choreographed action sequences. It was due in large part to the heartfelt performances of its cast and the powerful connections they formed with one another. Charlton H., who took on the role of Judah Ben-Hur, brought a depth and gravitas to the character that elevated the film, known for his commanding presence and unyielding dedication to his roles. H's portrayal of Judah was rooted in a nuanced understanding of the character's emotional and spiritual journey. What stood out about his performance was his ability to convey both the physical strength required for such an epic role and the internal struggle within Judah's heart. H's relationship with his co-stars played a key role in shaping his portrayal. The dynamic between him and Stephen Boyd, who played Marcella, was particularly notable. The tension between their characters was mirrored in the chemistry between the actors themselves. Boyd, with his sharp features and intense gaze, brought a ferocity to Marcella, a man torn between loyalty and ambition, power and friendship. Boyd's portrayal of Marcella was central to the film's emotional core, and the way he and Han played off each other created a sense of rivalry and betrayal that was both palpable and heartbreaking. Their scenes together, especially in the moments leading up to the tragic chariot race, are laced with tension. The authenticity of their relationship on screen was made possible by the camaraderie they developed off-screen. H and Boyd became fast friends during production, often spending long hours together in preparation for their roles. Boyd would later describe how the two men would sit for hours talking about the psychological underpinnings of their characters, carefully working through how their childhood friendship would evolve into bitter enmity. This collaboration translated to the screen, where the audience could sense that their bond, once forged in innocence, had crumbled into something far darker, setting the stage for the climactic moments of the film. But it wasn't just H and Boyd whose performances were crucial to the film's success. The cast as a whole, from the supporting characters to the extras filling the vast crowds, worked together to create an immersive world that felt both historically grounded and emotionally resonant. Jack Hawkins, who played Quintus Araz, the Roman commander who takes Judah in after he is rescued from the GS, brought warmth and authority to the role. His relationship with Judah was one of the film's more complex and touching arcs. Through their connection, the film explores themes of fatherhood, loyalty, and honor. Hawkins's nuanced performance, full of wisdom and compassion, provided a stark contrast to the fiery anger that consumed Judah, allowing the latter's eventual redemption to feel more earned. One of the film's most iconic and emotionally poignant scenes is when Judah and Aras share a moment of understanding, where Aras essentially becomes a surrogate father to Judah, offering him a sense of belonging. Behind the scenes, H and Hawkins shared a similar bond built on mutual respect and admiration. Hawkins, who had been an established actor by the time of Ben-Hur, took Han, offering guidance and advice. Their off-screen camaraderie translated into a genuine connection on screen, making their father-son dynamic all the more believable and impactful. Behind the scenes, the production of Ben-Hur was as challenging as it was rewarding, and the cast was pushed to their limits. The legendary chariot race, which remains one of the most thrilling sequences in film history, was an exhausting and dangerous endeavor for everyone involved. Charlton H. was known for doing many of his own stunts, including the chariot race, and he worked tirelessly with his stunt double, the legendary Joe Kinnett, to ensure that the scene would be as authentic and exhilarating as possible. What audiences may not know is that many of the stunts, including the dramatic close-ups of horses racing at breakneck speeds, were performed without the aid of special effects or CGI. Everything was done in camera. The intensity of the chariot race was matched only by the long hours of rehearsal during which H and Boyd, alongside the other actors and stunt performers, spent days learning the choreography, getting accustomed to the weight of the chariots and making sure every movement was precisely timed. In addition to the physical demands of the chariot race, the set of Ben-Hur was known for its sheer scale. The production required an enormous number of extras, as well as intricate sets that could capture the splendor of ancient Rome. The set designers, costume designers, and the entire crew worked tirelessly to recreate the grandeur of the Roman Empire. The iconic circus, the chariot race arena, was a monumental undertaking, with the filmmakers constructing a 500 ft long, 150 ft wide set that could accommodate not only the actors but thousands of extras. The level of detail was unparalleled, with every prop piece of armor and element of the set being carefully crafted to evoke the time period. The crew's dedication to accuracy and realism, combined with the actors' commitment to their roles, created a world that felt not just like a historical drama, but like a living, breathing empire. One of the most memorable behind-the-scenes stories involves the production's massive scale and the way the filmmakers made use of the then innovative techniques to achieve realistic, immersive scenes. The chariot race itself was filmed with a combination of practical effects, including moving cameras mounted on vehicles and carefully timed cuts. The use of real horses, intricate stunt choreography, and even the innovative camera work added to the authenticity of the race, making it a breathtaking experience for the audience. While the scene itself was exhilarating for viewers, it was a grueling experience for the actors. Boyd, who had been seriously injured during a rehearsal, continued to push through despite his pain, motivated by his desire to make the scene as thrilling as possible. Han, too, exhibited incredible dedication, suffering through grueling rehearsals and shooting days without complaint. The dedication of these actors was not only a testament to their professionalism, but to their commitment to the story they were telling, which was ultimately about perseverance, triumph, and overcoming the odds. The audience's reaction to Ben-Hur upon its release in 1959 was nothing short of ecstatic. The film was hailed as a masterpiece of cinematic achievement, and it quickly became a cultural touchstone. Audiences were captivated by the grandeur of the story, the emotional depth of the performances, and of course, the iconic chariot race. It was a film that transcended the boundaries of traditional cinema and became an experience, a spectacle that viewers could lose themselves in. Critics were equally impressed, praising not only the film's visual splendor, but also its emotional resonance and thematic depth. The film's success at the Academy Awards, where it won a record 11 Oscars, only solidified its place in cinematic history. It was a rare accomplishment, a film that struck a perfect balance between historical epic and personal drama, spectacle, and heart. Over the years, Ben-Hur has remained a beloved classic, with its influence extending far beyond the realm of film. The chariot race, in particular, is often cited as one of the most exciting action sequences ever committed to film, and the film's exploration of themes like vengeance, redemption, and grace continues to resonate with audiences. As the years passed, the film took on a new significance, especially as viewers revisited its themes in the context of contemporary issues. Its portrayal of the destructive nature of revenge, the possibility of redemption, and the power of forgiveness made it a timeless story, one that remains relevant to this day. While the film's technical achievements have been celebrated, the performances and chemistry between the cast members continue to stand out as the heart of the film. The relationships between the characters, Judah and Messala Judah, and Arias Judah and Esther, are deeply human, built on shared experiences and emotional struggles. Behind the scenes, the camaraderie between the cast members created a sense of unity that translated onto the screen, making the film's emotional beats hit harder. The film was a massive undertaking, and the dedication of the cast and crew is evident in every frame, creating an unforgettable cinematic experience that continues to captivate audiences both new and old. As the years go by, Ben-Hur remains not just a spectacle, but a living testament to the enduring power of storytelling. A film whose impact continues to be felt in the world of cinema and beyond. Ben-Hur is more than just a monumental film in the history of cinema. It's a cultural touchstone whose impact resonates across decades and generations. Released in 1959, it not only shaped the trajectory of epic film, but also left an indelible mark on the cinematic language itself. And The time of its release, it was an unprecedented achievement, both in terms of its technical prowess and its ability to weave an emotionally resonant story into the grand framework of ancient history. Its legacy has reverberated through countless films and filmmakers, and its influence on the epic genre remains profound, setting a standard for how such grand narratives should be told. The sheer scale and spectacle of Ben-Hur changed the expectations for what a cinematic epic could be, giving rise to new possibilities for filmmakers to explore both technical innovation and deep human emotion within the grandest of stories. What Ben-Hur did for the epic genre was revolutionary. Before its release, the genre was already well established with films like The Ten Commandments 1956 and Quo Vadis 1951, setting a precedent for large-scale historical dramas. However, Ben-Hur took everything to another level. William Wyler's direction, combined with the groundbreaking work of cinematographer Robert Surtees, set the film apart from its predecessors. It was a perfect amalgamation of the visual and emotional, marrying the vast sweeping shots of ancient Rome with the intimate personal drama of Judah Ben-Hur's journey. The chariot race itself remains one of the most iconic sequences ever filmed, not just for its sheer excitement, but for the way it blended innovative cinematography, real-world stunt work, and a deeply human story of revenge and redemption. It became the standard against which future epics would be judged, pushing filmmakers to think more creatively about how to combine spectacle with emotion. But the influence of Ben-Hur wasn't just limited to the epic genre. The film also marked a shift in how stories of faith and spirituality were presented on the screen. While it is in many ways a story of vengeance, it is equally a narrative of redemption, with the story of Judah's journey intertwined with the quiet presence of Jesus Christ. This theme of forgiveness, mercy, and the possibility of grace is woven seamlessly into the fabric of the film, setting a precedent for how religious themes could be integrated into mainstream cinema. While some films had previously explored religious subjects with heavy-handedness, Ben-Hur took a subtler approach, allowing the figure of Christ to be a silent, transformative force in Judah's life. The restrained, almost reverential way in which the film handled this aspect of the story paved the way for future films that wished to explore similar themes, providing a model for how to tell spiritually driven narratives in a way that felt both profound and accessible. To a wide audience, the film's impact on the world of cinema can be seen in the way it set the bar for production values. With its intricate sets, massive crowd scenes, and detailed recreations of ancient Rome, Ben-Hur raised the stakes for what a film could achieve in terms of spectacle. The film's famous chariot race scene alone required months of preparation, thousands of extras, and groundbreaking camera techniques. The result was a sequence that remains as thrilling and technically impressive today as it was when it was first shown. But the influence went beyond just spectacle. The film's success demonstrated to studios and filmmakers that epic stories could not only be technically impressive, but could also carry emotional weight, leading to a future where epic film was no longer just about grandeur, but about telling deeply human stories on a grand scale. The film's box office success and its reception from both critics and audiences made it clear that audiences were willing to engage with large-scale epics, but only if they were rooted in compelling characters and emotional depth. The film's place in cinematic history was solidified by its monumental success at the 32nd Academy Awards. In 1960, Ben-Hur won 11 Oscars, a record that stood for decades until it was tied by Titanic in 1997 and The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King in 2004. This remarkable achievement underscored the film's broad appeal and its technical mastery. It won in virtually every major category, including Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor Charlton Heston, and Best Art Direction, among others. These wins helped to cement the film's legacy as a towering achievement in the history of cinema, but the influence of Ben-Hur wasn't confined solely to its immediate awards recognition. Its record-breaking success at the box office and its dominance during the awards season laid the groundwork for a new era of filmmaking that would focus on both spectacle and storytelling. In the years that followed, filmmakers would look to Ben-Hur as the benchmark for how to achieve the perfect balance between massive world-building set pieces and character-driven storytelling. The cultural significance of Ben-Hur extended beyond the boundaries of film as it became a part of the larger lexicon of popular culture. The film's influence can be seen in everything from references in other films to its impact on television productions and even theme parks. The iconic chariot race in particular has been parodied and referenced countless times across media, becoming one of the most recognizable action sequences in cinematic history. The The movie's influence on the epic genre extended to filmmakers such as Ridley Scott, whose Gladiator 2000 drew clear inspiration from Ben-Hur's treatment of historical drama using similar themes of vengeance and redemption in an ancient Roman context. Similarly, Peter Jackson's The Lord of the Rings trilogy, which also combined a grand historical canvas with deeply personal stories of sacrifice and friendship, took many cues from Ben-Hur in terms of scale, character arcs, and epic visuals. The use of a sprawling historical backdrop to explore intimate emotional journeys is a hallmark of Ben-Hur's influence on later films. While its direct impact on contemporary blockbusters is undeniable, Ben-Hur has also maintained a lasting legacy in the way it shaped audience expectations. When the film was first released, it became an event and experience that transcended the typical movie-going experience. Audiences flocked to theaters not only to watch a story unfold, but to be immersed in a world unlike anything they had seen. Before, the experience of seeing Ben-Hur on the big screen was a communal event where the scale and intensity of the film made audiences feel as if they were part of the action. The iconic chariot race, for instance, was a defining moment in cinema history, but it was also a defining moment for how cinema could engage an audience emotionally and physically. It wasn't just about watching characters on a screen. It was about feeling the adrenaline, the fear, and the triumph. Ben-Hur helped to redefine what it meant for a film to be an experience, a tradition that continues in modern blockbusters over time. Ben-Hur has endured, not just because of its technical achievements, but because it continues to resonate with audiences on a deeper level. The themes of revenge, redemption, forgiveness, and the transformation of the human spirit have a universal appeal, and they remain as relevant today as they were when the film first premiered. These themes, combined with the gripping character arcs and stunning visuals, have ensured that Ben-Hur has remained a fixture of popular culture. It has become a movie that is studied by film students, discussed by cinephiles, and revisited by audiences who find something new in its timeless narrative. Its enduring popularity speaks to the film's ability to speak to something fundamental about the human experience, and it is this connection that has allowed it to endure. As a classic of world cinema, ultimately, Ben-Hur is more than just a historical epic or a box office hit. It is a touchstone in film history, a movie that defined an era of film while influencing countless others that followed. It represents the pinnacle of what can be achieved when grand scale and personal drama are fused together, and its impact is still felt in the films of today, whether it's the iconic chariot race, the emotional journey of Judah Ben-Hur, or the film's place in the annals of Hollywood history. Ben-Hur continues to stand as one of the greatest achievements in cinematic storytelling. It seems like there's a bit of confusion. In your question, Ben-Hur 1959 is a historical epic set in ancient Rome, and the movie doesn't feature modern cars at all. Instead, the film is known for its legendary chariot race, which involved real chariots drawn by horses, not cars. The film focuses on the ancient world, and the iconic chariot race is one of its most memorable scenes, with all the action revolving around horse-drawn chariots and not automobiles. Now, regarding the cost of the movie, Ben-Hur had an unprecedented budget for its time. The film cost around $175 million to produce, which was an enormous sum in 1959. The high cost was due to the massive sets, elaborate costumes, thousands of extras, and the complex and dangerous stunts, especially the chariot race. As for the expensive things used in the movie, the chariot race itself was a massive undertaking. The construction of the chariots, the set for the Circus Maximus, and the training for the horses were all very costly and resource-intensive. Also, the film's elaborate costumes and detailed sets required an immense amount of time and effort to create, adding to the film's ancient Rome. The famous chariot race was filmed on a specially constructed track at the Cineta Studios in Rome. Finally, regarding the box office, Ben-Hur was a massive success, earning over $74 million in the US alone at the time of its release, which was an enormous sum for the late 1950s. The film went on to become one of the highest-grossing films of its era and a true classic in Hollywood history. Let me know if you were referring to a different movie, and I'd be happy to help clarify. Ben-Hur stands as one of the most remarkable achievements in cinematic history. An epic tale of vengeance, redemption, and the human spirit. Released in 1959, it took audiences on an unforgettable journey through ancient Rome, immersing them in a world of grand spectacle, emotional depth, and timeless themes. Its sweeping narrative, the complex character arcs, and groundbreaking technical feats made it a movie that transcended its time, leaving a legacy that continues to influence filmmakers, audiences, and popular culture to this day. From the moment the film opens with Judah Ben-Hur's peaceful life shattered by betrayal to the thrilling and heart-stopping chariot race, Ben-Hur invites viewers into an emotional roller coaster where every twist, turn, and moment of grace feels earned and deeply human. The movie's rich tapestry of characters, Judah, Masala, Esther Eris, and so many others, was brought to life by a cast whose performances transcended the historical epic genre Charlton H's portrayal of. Judah Ben-Hur is iconic, layered with both physical strength and vulnerability, while Stephen Boyd's Masala captures the complexity of a man torn between duty and friendship. The chemistry between the actors was palpable, and their dedication to their roles infused the film with an emotional resonance that made the grand spectacle feel intimate and personal. Their relationships, especially the central rivalry between Judah and Masala, anchored the film, making the larger-than-a-life events grounded in human conflict and emotion. What truly set Ben-Hur apart, however, was the way it balanced its colossal scale with a deeply personal journey. The movie is not just about historical grandeur or political intrigue. At its core, it's a story about one man's transformation, a story about the consequences of revenge, the power of redemption, and the possibility of grace through Judah's journey. We are reminded that even in the most difficult of circumstances, there is always a path forward, a chance for healing, and an opportunity for forgiveness. The way the film intertwines Judah's personal struggles with the larger narrative of ancient Rome elevates it from a mere spectacle to a powerful exploration of the human condition. The technical feats achieved in Ben-Hur were nothing short of groundbreaking. The chariot race, still considered one of the greatest action sequences ever filmed, set a new standard for how to choreograph and capture thrilling, dangerous action. It was a masterclass in stunt work, camera work, and editing, pushing the limits of what was possible in 1959. The film's production values, its massive sets, the intricately designed costumes, and the detailed world building helped transport viewers into the past, making them feel as if they were truly witnessing the grandeur of ancient Rome. Every element of the film, from the grand battle sequences to the intimate moments between characters, was executed with meticulous care and attention to detail, showcasing the immense effort that went into making this movie a cinematic masterpiece. The legacy of Ben-Hur cannot be overstated. The film had a profound impact on Hollywood, changing the way epic stories were told and influencing filmmakers for generations. Its influence can be seen in everything from later historical epics to contemporary blockbusters, as it set the bar for how to blend spectacle with storytelling. It proved that movies could be both visually stunning and emotionally profound, and it showed that audiences were hungry for stories that were as emotionally resonant as they were grand in scale. The film's success at the Academy Awards, winning a record 11 Oscars, solidified its place in film history and ensured that it would be remembered as one of the greatest cinematic achievements of all time. But Ben-Hur's influence goes beyond just film. It became a cultural touchstone, a symbol of what cinema could achieve when it combined technical prowess with deeply human storytelling. Its themes of vengeance, redemption, and the transformative power of grace have resonated with audiences across generations, making it a film that continues to inspire and move viewers even more than 6 decades after its release. The film's powerful storytelling, coupled with its technical brilliance, has ensured that it remains a beloved classic in the annals of cinema. Now, as we reflect on the enduring impact of Ben-Hur, it becomes clear that it's more than just a film. It's an experience. It's a film that stays with you long after the credits roll, one that makes you think about the choices we make, the paths we take, and the power of forgiveness. Ben-Hur's place in the pantheon of cinematic greats is secure. And some information about it. How do you like our today's video? Please let us know by commenting. And if you like this video, please like it, share it, and forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.